The sky above Taraxis burned red. Flames from wrecked ships painted the desert with light and shadow. The air shook with distant explosions as the Valkar Dominion, one of the most feared powers in the galaxy, closed in on the last human fleet. For decades, the Valkar had told their people that humans were monsters. Never trust a human, they taught their children. Never let them near your world. They bring war, lies, and fire. Now, those same lies burned across the Valkar broadcasts, celebrating humanity's defeat. The war had dragged on for years, and today it seemed to be ending. But on the planet's surface, amid twisted metal and falling ash, one human still moved through the ruins. Lieutenant Mara Hayes, a combat medic, stumbled over debris as she searched for survivors. Her armor was cracked, her oxygen tank almost empty, but her eyes stayed sharp. "Anyone alive?" She called out through the smoke. Only the wind answered, a whisper across broken ships and bodies. Mara's visor picked up a faint life signal not far ahead. She ran toward it, sliding down the side of a half-buried escape pod. When she reached the source, she froze. It wasn't a human. It was a Valkar soldier. Young, his dark armor dented, his breathing shallow. His four-fingered hand twitched as he tried to reach for his weapon, but it lay too far away. Mara hesitated. Her training screamed at her. "Enemy, dangerous, leave him." But another voice, the human one, spoke louder. "He's still alive." She knelt beside him, pulling open her medkit. The alien's eyes widened in confusion, glowing faint blue beneath his cracked helmet. "You," he rasped, voice shaking. "You're human." Mara pressed a healing patch against his wound. "Yes," she said softly. "And you're bleeding. Stay still." He tried to pull away. "Why? Help me." Mara looked at him, tired but calm. "Because you're alive," she said. "That's enough." For a moment there was silence between them, only the faint hum of her medical tools. The Valkar stared at her like he was seeing something impossible. All his life he'd been told humans were beasts who laughed while others suffered. Yet here one was, saving him. Then a low rumble shook the air. Mara looked up. Her visor warning flashed red. A Valkar patrol ship was descending fast, engines glowing through the smoke. "Great," she muttered. "Now your friends show up." The injured soldier weakly raised his hand. They won't understand," he whispered. Mara glanced at him, realizing what he meant. To the Valkar, seeing a human over one of their own could only mean one thing: murder. She didn't have time to think. The ship landed with a thunderous crash nearby, sand and heat washing over her. Two Valkar troopers jumped out, weapons raised. Their armor gleamed black against the firelight. One of them shouted in their native tongue, voice full of hate. "She killed him! Kill the human!" Mara's heart pounded. She stood up slowly, raising her hands. "Wait! He's alive! I saved him!" But they didn't listen. The first trooper fired. A beam of plasma tore past her shoulder, burning the sand. She dove behind the wreckage, dragging the wounded soldier with her. The alien groaned in pain. "Stop. Please," he said weakly, his voice cracking. "She saved me." The Valkar soldiers didn't stop. To them, his words were confusion, maybe even brain damage. They thought the human was manipulating him. Mara pulled a smoke grenade from her belt and threw it, creating a thick gray cloud. "Hang on," she whispered to the soldier. "I'll get us out of this." But there was nowhere to run. The ship's engines roared, cutting off every escape path. The troopers advanced slowly, firing through the smoke, their shots slicing the air. Mara covered the alien with her body as plasma bolts tore into the sand around them. Her armor beeped in warning. Power low, shields gone. "Why are you doing this?" the Valkar soldier gasped. "You'll die." Mara's lips pressed into a thin smile. "Not if I can help it." Another shot hit nearby, throwing sand into the air. The noise was deafening, heat, fire, and light everywhere. Mara could hear their boots crunching closer. Her mind raced. She could fight. She could surrender. But neither option would save the wounded alien beside her. So, she made her choice. She turned, shielding him with her own body as another blast hit the ground. The screen of her visor flickered. Her voice, calm but steady, was the last thing he heard. "You're not my enemy anymore." A bright beam struck the sand beside her, blinding light swallowing the scene. Then, silence. Screen fades to black. End of Part 1. The Unexpected. War Next Part Preview Teaser. When the smoke clears, the Valkar soldiers find something they never expected. Their warlord's son alive, and a human medic unconscious beside him. Darkness, then pain. Mara Hayes opened her eyes slowly. Her head throbbed. She was lying on a cold metal floor, hands bound in glowing cuffs. The air smelled like oil and iron. Through the blur of her vision, she saw shapes, tall, armored figures standing around her, Valkar soldiers. She remembered the blast, the battlefield, the smoke, and then nothing. A deep voice spoke from the shadows. "You are awake, human." A figure stepped forward, a Valkar in heavy command armor, his silver eyes glowing under the dim light. His name was Captain Rethar, commander of the Valkar patrol that had captured her. Mara tried to sit up, but the cuffs locked tighter. "Where's the wounded soldier? The one I helped?" Rethar's expression stayed cold. "Alive. Because of you." He paused, staring down at her. "Why did you do it?" Mara frowned. "He was dying. What kind of question is that?" Rethar tilted his head slightly. "You saved an enemy. Our soldiers would have left you to rot. Yet you bled to protect him." Mara gave a small shrug. "Maybe that's the difference between us." The Valkar captain studied her like a puzzle he couldn't solve. He had fought humans for years, watched them destroy fleets and burn colonies. Yet this one looked ordinary. No hatred in her eyes, just exhaustion. A sound interrupted them. The door hissed open and another Valkar entered the room. It was Kale Varen, the soldier Mara had saved. His armor was repaired, his body wrapped in healing straps. He walked, with a limp, but his expression held something strange, gratitude mixed with confusion. Rethar turned to him. "You should rest, Kale. Your injuries are not fully—" "I'm fine," Kale interrupted. His voice was firm. "I need to speak to her." Rethar gave a small nod and stepped back, watching carefully. Kale stood in front of Mara. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he finally said, "You saved my life." Mara nodded. "I did. I don't understand why." Mara met his gaze. "Maybe you don't have to. Maybe just try to remember that next time someone tells you what humans are." Kyle hesitated. His father had been a warlord who taught him to hate humans more than anything. But this one had risked everything to save him. Before he could answer, the ship jolted hard. The lights flickered. Alarms screamed. Rethar barked an order. "Status report," a soldier shouted from the bridge. "Captain, unknown ships approaching. Pirates." "Pirates," Rethar growled. They wouldn't dare attack a Dominion vessel. But the next explosion proved him wrong. The ship shook violently as plasma fire tore through its outer hull. Mara looked at Kale. "You've got to let me out of these cuffs." Rethar turned toward her sharply. "No, you are still a prisoner." Mara's voice rose. "You don't understand. I'm a medic and an engineer. If you don't release me, your ship will die with everyone on it, including him." She nodded toward Kale. Rethar's jaw tightened. Another blast rocked the ship, throwing them all to the floor. The alarms wailed louder. Kale grabbed Rethar's arm. "Captain, she's right. We need her." Rethar hesitated, eyes narrowing. For a long second, he said nothing. Then he pulled a small device from his belt and tapped it. The cuffs clicked open. "Try anything," he warned, "and you'll die before your next breath." Mara didn't answer. She ran to the nearest console, her hands flying across the screen. "Your shields are failing. Reroute power from the aft engines to the front deflectors, and now!" Rethar shouted the order. The crew obeyed. The ship shook again, but this time it held. Mara turned to Kale. We can't stay still. If they board, you're finished. Kale frowned. We can't outrun them. Mara smiled faintly. Then we outsmart them. She pulled open a floor panel, connecting a manual override. I'm locking the ship's heat signature. They'll think we exploded. Rathar stared at her in disbelief. You know Valkar systems? Not really, she said, grinning, but I know how fire works. For several tense minutes, the pirates kept firing into empty space, until they finally stopped. The radar went clear. Mara let out a shaky breath and leaned back against the wall. You're safe. For now. Kyle looked at her with something close to awe. You could have escaped during the attack. You didn't. Mara gave a tired smile. Didn't seem like the right time. Rathar folded his arms. You saved my ship. Guess that makes us even. Mara replied. Rathar didn't respond. He looked at Kale instead, the young soldier whose father led one of the Dominion's largest fleets. Kale had been raised to see humans as beasts. Now he was standing beside one who had saved them all. When the danger passed, Mara was placed back in the holding room, but this time her cuffs stayed unlocked. Kale visited her again later. I told them the truth, he said quietly. That you saved me and them too. Some don't believe it. But I saw it. Mara looked up. And what do you believe? Kyle hesitated, then said, that maybe everything we were taught is wrong. Before Mara could reply, the ship's lights dimmed again. An officer's voice echoed through the speakers. Captain Rathar, incoming transmission from High Command. Priority 1, Rathar S. The stars outside the Valkar ship streaked into long white lines as it jumped into hyperspace. Mara Hayes sat in the corner of her small holding room, eyes half closed, listening to the hum of the engines. Every few minutes she felt the ship shake slightly. Not normal. She'd flown enough to know something was off. In the command deck, Captain Rathar and Kale Vereen argued quietly. She doesn't deserve execution, Kale said, his voice firm. She saved me. She saved you. Rathar's eyes stayed on the holographic map. Orders are orders, Kale. The Dominion doesn't forgive mercy toward humans. Then the Dominion is wrong, Kale shot back. Rathar turned sharply. You forget your place. You are the son of a warlord, not a diplomat. Kale clenched his fists. And you forget who kept your ship from being a pile of scrap. Silence fell between them. The tension was thick. Both knew the truth. Mara had done what no Valkar would ever have done. And that truth made both of them question everything. The hum of the engines deepened, then cracked. A bright red light flashed on the main console. Captain, a crew member shouted, we've lost stabilizers. The warp field is collapsing. Before Rathar could respond, the entire ship lurched sideways. Metal screamed. The lights flickered, then died. Mara was thrown against the wall, the floor shaking beneath her. Not again, she muttered, grabbing a railing to keep her balance. The ship fell out of hyperspace with a thunderous jolt, tumbling through empty space before crashing into a barren gray moon below. Everything went silent, except for the low groan of damaged engines. When Mara woke again, her vision spun. She was alive, why somehow. The door to her cell was broken open, smoke filling the hall. She coughed and stumbled toward the bridge. Sparks burst from open panels. The smell of burning circuits filled the air. Kyle was already there, helping lift debris off an injured officer. Rathar stood beside him, face grim. When he saw Mara, he didn't shout this time. He just said, we're stranded. Mara scanned the damage. Engines offline. Life support at 30%. Communication systems are fried. She looked at the oxygen meter flashing red on the console. We've got maybe 12 hours before this place turns into a tomb. Rathar turned to her slowly. You're the one who fixed this ship before. Can you do it again? Mara raised an eyebrow. Depends. Am I still your prisoner? Kale gave a small smile despite the situation. For now, let's call you our engineer. She rolled up her sleeves. Fine. Let's keep everyone breathing first. For the next few hours, they worked together, humans and Valkar side by side. Mara crawled through maintenance shafts, reconnecting wires and sealing leaks with quick patches. Kale followed her, handing tools and keeping the air filters running. At one point, he asked quietly, Is it true that humans once tried to destroy an entire sun? Mara paused, then nodded. Yeah, that was before my time. A desperate act in a desperate war. Kale frowned. And yet you save enemies. She looked back at him. People change. Sometimes it takes the worst to bring out the best. He didn't answer. But the way he watched her changed. Less suspicion, more curiosity. When they finally restored partial power, the ship's interior lights flickered on dimly. Mara leaned against a console, wiping sweat from her forehead. That should buy us time. Rethar entered the room carrying a data pad. Good work. But we have a new problem. He showed her the screen. A distress beacon had activated automatically when they crashed. Mara's eyes narrowed. That's a good thing, isn't it? Rethar's face darkened. Not this one. It's a Dominion beacon. It will draw Valkar hunter ships here. Kale's expression turned pale. They'll kill her the moment they arrive. Mara folded her arms. Then we can't let them find us. Rethar shook his head. We can't turn it off from here. It's hardwired into the escape beacon. If we tamper with it, the reactor could detonate. Mara thought for a moment. We could mask it. Make them think it's a false echo. Rethar frowned. You think you can trick Valkar scanners? Already did it once, she said with a small smile. Remember the pirates? Kyle smirked. She's right. Let her try. Hours passed as Mara worked on the signal array. She sat cross-legged on the floor, wires spread around her. Kale sat nearby, keeping watch through a cracked viewport. Outside, the barren gray moon stretched endlessly. No life, no light, only silence. Funny, Kyle said quietly. We were raised to hate humans so much that even hearing your voice should make me want to fight. And now? Mara asked, not looking up. He hesitated. Now I'm not sure what I was taught means anything. Mara gave a faint smile. Maybe that's how peace starts. With one person getting confused, they both laughed. Softly, tiredly, but real. Suddenly the console beeped. Mara's smile faded. That's not good. Rethar rushed in. What happened? The beacon just pinged back. Something's out there. A ship. Kyle looked out the viewport. A small glimmer appeared in the distance, getting closer. Rethar's voice was tense. They found us. Mara's heart sank. How long until they arrive? Minutes, Rethar said. Kale turned to him. We can talk to them. Tell them she's under my protection. My father, Rethar cut him off. Your father would execute you both before hearing the story. The rumble of an approaching ship filled the air. Mara could feel the vibrations through the floor. Kyle looked at her. You need to hide. Mara shook her head. If they see you protecting me, they'll kill you too. Kale's voice hardened. Then we'll both die standing. Rethar slammed his fist on the console. Enough. We'll find another way. But before they could move, the scanners blared. The incoming ship had already deployed troops. Rethar looked at them both, his face cold and grim. They're not rescuers. They're hunters. Mara's heart raced. Then we run. Kale grabbed his weapon. No, he said. We fight. Cliffhanger. The ground shook as the Valkar hunter team landed near the wreckage. Outside, through the smoke and dust, Mara saw their insignia. Blood-red marks of the elite Valkar Purge division. They had one order, kill any human on sight, and they were coming straight for her. The rain began to fall on Taraxis, soft, cold, and strange after weeks of burning skies. Lieutenant Mara Hayes stood near the human outpost's gate, watching the gray horizon. The wounded Valkar soldier, now healed enough to walk, stood beside her. His name was Kale. He hadn't spoken much since the night she saved him. Every time she tried to talk, he just stared at the ground as if carrying a secret too heavy to share. Finally, Mara broke the silence. You can go, she said quietly. No one's stopping you. Kyle didn't move. His voice came low and careful. If I leave, your people will die. Mara frowned. What do you mean? He turned toward her, his black armor glinting under the weak light. The Valkar are coming again. Not a patrol. A full strike force. They plan to erase this base from orbit. Mara froze. How do you know that? Kale took a long breath. Because the commander leading them is my brother. Inside the command tent, alarms flashed red. Human officers shouted orders while screens filled with enemy movement. Mara pulled Kyle inside before anyone noticed. Captain Voss, her commander, glared when he saw the alien. What is this, Lieutenant? Mara stood firm. He's Valkar, but he's not our enemy. He saved me, and he knows their next move. Kale raised his head. I can prove it. He stepped forward, typing on a nearby console with trembling claws. A map appeared, glowing red lines showing Valkar warships descending through the clouds. Gasps filled the room. The data was real. Captain Voss clenched his jaw. So they're coming here. You expect me to believe him? Kale looked directly at the human captain. I don't care if you believe me, but if you want to live, you must evacuate within the hour. Voss studied him for a long moment, then looked at Mara. And why is he helping us? Before Mara could answer, Kale spoke softly. Because one human saved me, and I owe her more than my life. Hours later, the evacuation began under the cover of night. Human ships rose one by one into the dark, carrying wounded soldiers and supplies. Mara stayed behind with a small team to protect the last shuttle. Kale refused to leave her side. If my brother's fleet finds us, he said, he will not hesitate. He thinks humans are poison, that we should never have existed. Mara looked at him, seeing not a monster, but someone torn between blood and honor. You don't have to fight him, she said. Just survive. Kale shook his head. I can't. He'll never stop unless I stop him first. A sudden roar shook the ground. Fire streaked across the sky. The Valkar fleet had arrived. The first explosions lit up the desert. Mara and Kale ran toward the last shuttle as plasma bolts slammed into the sand around them. The pilot yelled from the ramp, "We're out of time." Kale grabbed Mara's arm. Get aboard. She shook her head. Not without you. Another explosion hit nearby. Kale's eyes glowed in the firelight. If I don't face him now, your people will die. Let me end this, Mara's voice broke. Kyle, he smiled, her sad, almost human smile. You showed me mercy. Let me return it. He turned and ran into the storm of fire, vanishing into the chaos. Mara watched, frozen, as the shuttle doors closed. The engines lifted her away from the burning desert. Below, Kale faced the oncoming Valkar ships alone, his armor shining like a single spark against the dark. Cliffhanger. From orbit, Mara looked down through the viewport. A massive explosion bloomed where Kyle had stood. No one could survive that. Tears filled her eyes. But as the ship rose higher, a faint signal appeared on her console, a Valkar transmission using human encryption. One word flashed, O. The human fleet drifted in silence above Taraxis. Below them, the desert world still burned. Lieutenant Mara Hayes sat alone in the medbay, staring at the flickering signal on her screen. The word alive. Every few minutes, she checked it again, afraid it would vanish. No one else on the ship believed it. The Valkar fleet had been destroyed in a chain reaction. Their own flagship had exploded, wiping out the entire invasion force. To most, it was over. To Mara, it wasn't. Captain Voss entered quietly. You haven't slept in 2 days, he said. I can't, Mara whispered. If he's alive, he needs help. Voss sighed. Lieutenant, he's the enemy. Even if he lived, the Valkar will hunt him for betrayal. You can't save everyone. Mara looked up at him, her eyes steady. I'm not trying to save everyone. Just the one who deserves it. Days later, the human fleet moved to a hidden repair base near the edge of the system. Mara kept the transmission secret. She traced it through encrypted signals. It led to an old mining moon abandoned for decades. When she requested a shuttle, Voss refused. Denied, he said flatly. You're not chasing ghosts, Hayes. We lost too many already. But that night, Mara stole one anyway. The moon was silent when she landed. Gray dust, broken towers, and echoes of forgotten machines. Her scanner beeped once, twice, then locked onto a faint life sign. She moved carefully through the ruins, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. Then she saw it, a Valkar armor plate lying in the dust, scorched but familiar. Kyle, she called softly. A shadow moved. From the wreckage, Kale stepped forward, limping but alive. His armor was cracked, his breathing heavy. You came, he said, almost in disbelief. I got your signal, she replied. You shouldn't have survived that blast. Kale smiled faintly. I didn't, not the way I was before. Mara frowned. What do you mean? He looked away. The explosion wasn't an accident. I triggered it. Mara stared in shock. You destroyed your own fleet? Kale nodded slowly. I had to. My brother wouldn't stop until every human was dead. He ordered the ships to fire on the escape transports. I couldn't let that happen. His voice broke as he continued. So I overloaded the flagship's core. I killed them all, my crew, my brother, my family. The words hung heavy in the air. Mara took a step closer. You did what you had to do. He shook his head. No, I did what you taught me. Compassion and mercy, these are not Valkar words, but they are human ones. He reached into his armor and pulled out a small glowing device. This, Mum, is why I called you. Mara took it carefully. What is it? Proof, Kale said. Everything the Valkar government hid from the galaxy. Records of their war crimes, planets they burned, species they erased. If you show this to the Council, it will end their rule. Mara stared at the device. Kale, this could start another war. He nodded. Maybe, but it might also end one. A sudden sound echoed through the tunnels, the high-pitched whine of an approaching ship. Kyle's eyes widened. They found me. Blue lights cut through the dust. Valkar hunters. Elite soldiers sent to capture the traitor prince. Kale grabbed his rifle and turned to Mara. Get to your ship. I'm not leaving you again, she said. He smiled sadly. You will, because if they catch both of us, everything we did dies here. Mara hesitated, clutching the device. Kale looked at her one last time. Tell them the truth, Mara. Tell them what a human taught a monster. Then he pushed her toward the exit as plasma fire filled the air. Mara ran through the collapsing tunnels, her breath ragged. Behind her, explosions roared, shaking the ground. She reached her shuttle and lifted off, watching the moon break apart beneath her. As she entered orbit, she opened a comm channel. Static filled the screen. Then for a brief second, a voice came through. Go, Mara. Live. Then silence. Cliffhanger. Back on the human base, Mara placed the glowing device on the council table. The moment it activated, holograms of Valkar atrocities filled the room. Every officer stared in horror. And at the very end of the data, one last image appeared. Kyle, alive, standing among ruins, facing the Valkar throne. He wasn't running anymore. He was coming back. The council chamber was silent. Every officer, every diplomat, and every strategist stared at the floating holograms of destruction. Planets burned, civilizations erased. Evidence of centuries of Valkar crimes flashed before their eyes. Lieutenant Mara Hayes stood at the center, her hands gripping the device that Kyle had given her. Her heart pounded, but her voice was steady. These records show everything, she said. Every lie the Valkar told the galaxy. Every death they caused. And every life they tried to take from us. Some officers whispered. Some turned pale. The room trembled with tension. From the shadow of the chamber came a sound and a ship landing outside. Mara looked toward the viewport. It was Kyle. The Valkar prince descended from orbit in a small, patched-up vessel. His armor was scarred, his face weary, but his eyes burned with determination. He stepped into the chamber, hands raised to show he carried no weapon. Every officer froze. Kale Varane, one of the generals shouted. You are a traitor to your people. Kale's voice was calm but powerful. I am no longer a traitor. I am the truth your empire refused to see. He held up a datapad. I destroyed my own fleet to stop the genocide. I have proof of every war crime, every betrayal, every lie. Humanity is not your enemy. The Valkar Empire is the enemy of the galaxy. Mara watched the room. Shock and disbelief filled every face. Many could not process what they were seeing. A Valkar prince, a warrior standing openly with a human. One officer shouted, You defy your father. Your bloodline. Kale's gaze hardened. My father taught me to hate, to kill, to obey. But I learned something greater from a human. That life, any life, deserves mercy. And that mercy is stronger than fear. He turned toward Mara. Lieutenant Hayes taught me that. She risked her life to save me when no one else would. She showed me a human's true strength, not weapons, not ships, not fire, but compassion. Mara felt her chest tighten. Every word Kale spoke resonated deep inside. Then the chamber doors burst open. Valkar guards poured in, weapons raised. Seize them! Kale stepped forward, blocking their path. His hands clenched into fists, energy pulsing faintly from his armor. Mara could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to taste. You will not touch her, Kyle said. His voice echoed through the hall. Or you will answer to me, and to the galaxy you betrayed. For a moment, silence fell. Even the guards hesitated. Then Kale activated a small device projecting the holographic records across the entire chamber. The evidence was overwhelming. Planets, fleets, and colonies destroyed by the Valkar. Even their own soldiers had been sacrificed for power. The officers' eyes widened in horror. Some knelt, some turned pale. The weight of centuries of lies crashed down upon them. Finally, one elder counselor spoke, voice trembling. This cannot be ignored. The Valkar Empire has ruled through fear and deceit. We must act. Kyle nodded. The galaxy will judge them. But first, we save those who can still be saved. Hours later, Mara and Kyle stood on the balcony of the human flagship, overlooking the galaxy below. The Valkar forces that remained had surrendered. Colonies once thought lost were beginning to send messages. Slowly, the tide of war began to turn. Kyle turned to Mara. I am no longer a prince of my empire. I am only a soldier who learned the value of mercy. Mara smiled, her eyes tired but shining. You did more than that. You showed your people the truth. You showed the galaxy that even enemies can change. Cal looked at her, gratitude and respect in his glowing eyes. I owe you everything. You saved me, not just my life, but my honor and my future. Mara shook her head. We saved each other. They watched the stars in silence for a long moment, the galaxy stretching endlessly before them. Then Kale spoke, voice soft but certain. We may have stopped the Valkar Empire's wrath, but this peace is fragile. The galaxy will need humans and Valkar to work together, and they will need hope. Mara looked at him. Then we give it to them. One life, one choice, one act of mercy at a time. He smiled faintly. Then let's start with the ones who survived the fire. The last shot of the story. The camera pans across the recovering colonies, rebuilt ships and children playing on once-burned planets. In the distance, Mara and Kyle stand together looking toward the horizon. The voiceover echoes in the audience's mind. Sometimes enemies are only strangers waiting to be saved. And sometimes saving them changes everything.